So it's been a while. To refresh your memory about what these videos are about, it's pretty much a big review of a season of Adventure Time. Well, sort of a review slash recap, with my thoughts on each episode. It won't be super in-depth, but hopefully it will be entertaining enough and maybe even a bit of a nostalgic trip through these episodes. I will be going in order by the date these episodes aired, so let's get started. Episode 1, It Came from the Nightosphere. This was the episode where I started to get even more into the show since it started introducing some of the darker elements with Marceline's dad and the Nightosphere. It starts off with Finn and Marceline hanging out, we see a dog that doesn't appear often. In fact, I don't think it even shows up again. We have a short little song from Marceline before Finn summons her dad. One thing I absolutely love in this episode is how crazy the characters move. Especially Finn with his crazy arms, as well as Hunson when he's talking to people about sucking out their souls. We see the fluffy people and the Marauders again, so that's a nice callback to the first season. One of my favorite parts of this episode is Hunson interacting with the penguins and Ice King. Funny how a one-off joke in this episode would lead to something big later on.
Offer your soul to me, Dark One.
Also, LSP gets sucked up, but it's not her soul, it's just her. Well, she's an anti-element, I guess that comes with having no soul. Eventually, Finn ends up defeating Hunson by distracting him with Marceline's song he recorded, and we get one of the best lines in the episode.
I'll see you in the Nightosphere, you sick freak.
As for why Jake wasn't in the episode, well, he was in Finn's pocket. Also, it sort of makes sense because Jake is still afraid of vampires. Episode 2, The Eyes. This is an episode that I think really shows how great the characters of Finn and Jake are. You can just put them into any situation and it will be funny. Both of them have apparently been up for 7 days helping people. One of them was Peppermint Butler who found a dead goblin. I don't know, Pep Butt probably had something to do with that. As soon as Finn and Jake try to sleep, they're interrupted by a horse staring at them from outside the window. There is a ton of funny dialogue in this episode. From relatable,
I want to marry my bed.
to morbid,
Dude, let's kill the horse.
to just nonsensical.
What are you going to do?
Say that to me again.
What are you going to do?
Do.
They eventually find out that the horse was actually Ice King spying on them, because he wants to find out how to be happy. Finn and Jake are so tired that when they have Ice King pinned down, they just fall asleep. Ice King has the revelation that maybe all he needs is a good night's rest. But then...
I'm still not happy.
Yeah, this is a great episode that has some amazing funny dialogue. Episode 3, Loyalty to the King. The episode begins with Finn and Jake saving a princess from the Ice King's prison while he's asleep. Once he wakes up, we start to see just how crazy he is with how he acts. He ends up shaving his beard and then goes out to exercise. Slime Princess talks to him.
Is someone paying you to do this?
That's how I feel when girls talk to me. For some reason, all the princesses like the way he looks and mistakes him for a new, nice king. Even some of the weird ones show up. Ew. Finn and Jake get word of this, and also mistake him for someone else and want to serve him as knights. They end up trying to organize his potential wives, one of them being LSP, and she punches out her lumps, making her a circle, which is pretty funny. Ice King apparently now wants to take over the world with his elite army of wives? Like I said, he's crazy. Finn and Jake find out his true identity and stop him though. Overall, it's a really fun episode. Episode 4, Blood Under the Skin. This episode starts out with Finn gently letting out a ladybug, but then he gets a splinter, so he needs to go to Chuscoos to get some armor. Which, by the way, this is the first episode he's in. After being made fun of by some knights, he needs to get some better armor than just a thimble for his finger. Chuscoos has some suggestions, but then gets slapped by Finn, which I think is one of the funniest things. Chuscoos then sends him on a goose chase. Yes, I said that. To go get some legendary armor. Sir Slicer is a one-off character that shows up throughout the episode, and each time he appears, there are birds and a weird sound effect that plays. One of the best lines from Jake is in this episode right before they enter the Swamp of Embarrassment.
Trust me, dude. I'm smarter than everyone.
When Finn enters the swamp where people are showering, there's a word that I thought I would never hear in a Cartoon Network show.
Pervert! I'm not a pervert!
I was very surprised to hear that when I first saw the episode. Finn then tries to calm a giant Yeti-looking thing, while Jake has the suggestion of having Finn nurse. Then Sir Slicer shows up again with a bard, whose outfit we will actually see later in the season. Then they go to a cave where the armor is supposed to be, guarded by a ghost who is obsessed with the game of drop ball. a game where you pick up a ball with your butt cheeks. This episode is about Finn getting embarrassed by the things he has to do and getting made fun of by the Knights and Sir Slicer. But I love how he completely turns it around on Sir Slicer in the end, asking him why he's following around a kid all day.
Well, at least I don't spend my day following a kid around. Get a life, dude.
Episode 5, Storytelling. Jake is sick in this episode, and he needs Finn to tell him a real story so he can feel better. They actually acknowledge the snail in this episode for the first time, where Finn sees it on a leaf and tells Jake about it. That's not a good story though, so Jake has Finn go out into the forest to find something with romance, suspense, and etc. When trying to look for romance, Finn peeks into a squirrel's den to say,
Are y'all kissing in there?
Getting? Getting what, Finn? Getting what? Then Finn comes across a fox and a goose, asking them to kiss while he watches. He says he'll do anything, and the fox asks him to eat dirt. Finn really loves Jake and would do anything for him. In fact, he comes close to killing a few birds for suspense.
Hey, you guys. You wanna die?
You can see in his face just how conflicted he is in trying to be a good person, but also wanting to help Jake. But then all the animals and the forest wizard trap him over a portal. Finn is smart enough to suggest that the animals are living unhappy lives and need to change things. Except for Mrs. Cow, who has a Phil face for another.
Yo, put that bag back on!
It's nice to see an episode mainly focused on Finn interacting with the environment of Ooh. And there's some great background decoration here too. Episode 6, Slow Love. Now this is an episode I'm actually not too fond of. I don't think it's bad, it's just one I never thought was too appealing. Maybe it's just the character of Snorlock that makes me dislike it. He's a snail that crashes into Finn and Jake's treehouse wanting to find a girlfriend, so they agree to help him. Turns out he wasn't a snail though, but a slug, and that's why he was having problems. The treehouse being somewhat destroyed in this episode also kind of lessens the impact of a much later episode when it gets destroyed again. I guess only part of the treehouse came apart this time though. One highlight of the episode is Finn being really uncomfortable with Jake's snail transformation. I mean, I would be too. Also, BMO gets beat up a lot here. He's disciplined in the beginning, then smashed, then slimed on. Episode 7, Power Animal. This episode is all about Jake being unable to focus, which is very relatable. That's why this video has taken so long to come out. Finn ends up being kidnapped by gnomes who want to use his energy to turn the world upside down? Okay. The episode cuts between them and Jake at the treehouse, unable to focus on finding Finn. He just yells out for Finn while eating a sandwich and constantly gets distracted by things like a dancing bug and the water nymphs. This is their first appearance, and I love their design. I also love Finn's insane fantasy about breaking free of the gnomes and the way he imagines himself and Jake as these big buff action stars. Jake eventually finds himself at a party in the clouds. One of the funniest lines is from the water nymphs here.
You blacked out after laughing so hard at your own jokes.
Then the party god offers Jake a wish, which has a catch of course, but it makes for a pretty funny transition to Jake saving Finn. And the episode ends with one of the best ending lines to an episode.
Let's go eat cinnamon bun!
BMO was also shown in this episode a bit more, showing that he's a part of the family in the treehouse, so that's nice. Episode 8, Crystals Have Power. This is a continuation of the Tree Trunks episode from Season 1, so I believe this is actually the first episode to acknowledge some sort of continuity. It also introduces the Crystal Dimension, which will be talked about a bit more in later seasons. This episode is all about Jake trying to be non-violent. After these Crystal Guards capture Finn, Jake tries to save him. But he doesn't want to be violent because earlier in the episode, he accidentally hurt Finn while they were roughhousing. There's a lot of really funny shapes that Jake turns into during this episode. The way he portrays himself as soft and deflated, rolling around like a ball, just cracks me up with the animation. We also see Jake's brother Jermaine for the first time, but voiced by John DiMaggio instead. I also love how Jake's dad has a life lesson that Jake just didn't get in the beginning, which makes for one of the best dialogue exchanges in the episode.
Dad, you said I'm gonna hurt everybody!
Yeah, everybody.
I don't know, Dad. That doesn't really help me.
Everybody who is evil, Jake. Let me finish next time, Yeah?
Oh, well then I'm over it then.
When we see Tree Trunks again, she's huge, and she wants Finn as her king. And lover. That's nothing a good kick to the stomach won't solve, though. Overall, fun episode with some continuity introduced. Episode 9, The Other Tarts. This episode is about Princess Bubblegum sending Finn and Jake on a mission to carry the royal tarts. There is a predetermined path that they are told to take, but Finn has a brilliant plan to go through the Badlands and the Desert of Doom, while they have Cinnamon Bun carry some decoy tarts. It's really cool to see some of the desert areas of Ooh. There's some really awesome set decoration here and interesting character designs. Finn and Jake are creating their own trouble most of the time, getting the tarts stolen and eventually losing all of them, while Cinnamon Bun just has a simple walk. The little jingle here is something I always hum after seeing this episode. I'm sure there's a 10-hour version of it somewhere.
Shall I hold that for you, sir? Okay. Shall I hold that for you, sir? Okay. Shall I hold that for you, sir? Okay. Shall I hold that for you, sir? Okay.
By the end, we learn that Cinnamon Bun was carrying the real tarts and everything is fine. But then the old tart toter comes in and has a weird philosophical rambling. I remember early on, people would cite this as why Adventure Time is sometimes deep. But not really. Don't worry, we'll get to those episodes in later seasons. Also, does PB just abandon her old creations like that? I mean, I guess so. She is a bit off sometimes.
That's paralyzing potion, Finn. Don't touch it. It'll paralyze you forever.
Episode 10, To Cut a Woman's Hair. This starts off with Finn helping some birds by chewing an apple for them, and Jake comments that he's imagining kissing PB. So we get a bit of that crush going on. They then encounter a tree witch, voiced by Thurup Van Orman, who wants some princess hair. Jake ends up trapped under her butt, while Finn has to go find some princess hair. We get to see Muscle Princess's castle, and also LSP, who is now living in the woods, which is sort of an ongoing story in the background of the show. It makes the land of Ooh feel more like a real place with stuff like that. Finn also ends up grave robbing Princess Beautiful. Problem is, she died of baldness. It's such a simple but great joke. Finn eventually goes to Princess Bubblegum and has a quick little date with her, making a table out of a tree. There's such intense music during this part since he's on a time limit to save Jake. Also, best line of the episode here.
Please, princess, just stick it in your mouth.
Finn gets a lock of hair from PB, which will be important in the next season. Turns out that hair is just gum, which makes sense. But then we get to see Finn without his hat for the first time. Apparently, he has very shiny, beautiful blonde hair. It's a fun episode with some great gags. Episode 11, The Chamber of Frozen Blades. This episode starts out with Finn and Jake spying on the Ice King with the tip from Flambeau. This is his first appearance. He's a very minor character, but the way he talks is hilarious.
Ninjas ain't real for nothing, no-how.
Finn and Jake invade Ice King's house while wanting to do ninja stuff, but then accidentally crash into a secret cave where they find out Ice King is secretly into ninja stuff. They try out different techniques and mess around in Ice King's house. One line I really like is when Finn sees multiple Jakes.
What? 3 Jakes? That's one too many.
This episode reminds me a lot of when I was a kid playing pretend with friends with whatever we were into at the time. The B-plot of the episode has Ice King taking Gunter to a doctor, and Gunter lays an egg that has a magic cat in it. When Ice King comes back home, Finn and Jake find out that he kidnapped Dr. Princess, who isn't actually a princess, and also probably not a doctor either.
Something medical is happening.
I think this is the only episode where the title card is the same as the ending frame. It's a fun little tribute to old ninja movies. Episode 12, Her Parents. For some reason, I love the atmosphere in the beginning of this episode with Finn, Jake, and BMO eating breakfast. I guess it's the nice particles floating in the sun rays that make it feel homey. Speaking of which, this episode is about homies helping homies, because Finn is trying to help Jake make Lady's parents think he's a Rainicorn. When we find out they're coming over, we learn about the Rainicorn Dog Wars, and the Crystal Dimension is mentioned again. There's a short little song montage in this episode with Finn and Jake decorating the house with condiments, though it doesn't look as good in reality. I love how Lady's parents also use voice boxes, a nice callback to the first season. Jake and Lady's parents end up making Finn do all kinds of stuff where he ends up getting hurt. Then Lady's parents try to eat Finn, because Jake's words get misconstrued. We learn that apparently Rainicorns used to eat humans, and we get first mention of them possibly being extinct. It's all good though, because soy people practically taste the same. I love how Finn smiles at the taste at the end. It's a bit disturbing that you'd like the taste of your own species. Episode 13, The Pods. This is another one of those episodes that I forgot about a lot. I just didn't see it that often on TV. Finn and Jake come across a gnome frog knight guarding some magic beans, because one is evil, but he forgot which one. He wants them to take on the quest to guard them so he can finally die. Finn agrees to take on the quest, but Jake's not too happy about it.
Really? We have to do the bean quest?
It reminds me a lot of boring or lame quests in video games that you have to do. They quickly get bored of guarding the beans and just plant them to see which one was the evil bean. They quickly grow overnight into these giant plants with pods at the end. The first one has a bunch of pigs in silly costumes, but Finn and Jake have them take a test to make sure they're not evil.
Aw, they're so cute they can hardly hold their pencils.
That doesn't fare well for their grade point average.
The second pod just has some glitter wands, and then the third one has regenerating ice cream. Though that's kind of a weird image with Jake licking chocolate ice cream out of a pod. Ew. So yeah, turns out those pigs were evil. And they're allergic to ice cream. I love how casually Jake is stuck dancing telling Finn to kill the pigs.
Jake, there's one left, and I think he's trying to surrender.
Kill it!
Also, I don't know why, but the way Jake sounds so offended that Finn would ask if he has more room for ice cream just makes me laugh.
Nice job, Tubby, but save room for the ice cream marathon.
I've always got room for ice cream, Finn. You know that, man. Ugh.
Episode 14, The Silent King. This episode has Finn becoming the king of the goblins. Zergiok, their previous king, was a tyrant who was a fan of spanking, and we get a little montage of that. After Finn and Jake become king and queen, yeah, I know what I said, they get a tour of the Goblin Kingdom. The main thing I love about this episode is the set design. There's a lot of really cool and creative stuff here. The Goblin Kingdom is a bit of a bureaucracy with a bunch of rules that Finn doesn't like following at all. I mean, I wouldn't want other people chewing my food either. Eventually, we have Zergiok come back with an Earclops army, and Finn has a plan to defeat him, and also get out of being king of the goblins. We get to see the first use of the Jake suit, which is really cool. It's a fun episode, but I do find premises where the society is a stickler for rules a bit annoying. Episode 15, The Real You. We see PB setting up a science barbecue. Finn wants to impress her at the conference, and we see a bit more of his crush in this episode. But in order to impress Princess Bubblegum, he needs to become smart, so he tries a variety of ways. First, he tries the library, but that doesn't work out.
What you doing?
I'm bored now too!
Then he tries learning in a class for worms, though they're basically talking about who would win topics in a class called Theoretical Phytonomics. It's one of my favorite funny scenes from this episode. It has a great gag of Jake shrinking down but keeping his hand the same size.
Jake, you can just shrink yourself down.
Oh, yeah.
But then Finn finally gets smart thanks to some glasses he gets from Chuscoos. He ends up creating a bit of a disaster at the science barbecue with a 4D bubble that becomes a black hole. I love all the character designs during this scene, especially this cool cyber girl. But yeah, fun episode with some great gags. Episode 16, Guardians of Sunshine. This is the first episode that uses a different animation style with 3D. Finn and Jake get sucked into a game, which before looked like a simple Atari game, but inside BMO, it's all 3D. I think the models for Finn and Jake look good, but it's weird how Jake has a pyramid head. Not like that. I love the little song they sing. It's something that I actually hum pretty often.
We are in the computer world. We're computer boys, not computer girls.
They quickly find that the game inside is a lot more dangerous than playing it in the real world, though Jake forgets that pretty quickly.
There's nothing more precious than a life. Ooh, dude, look, coins.
They eventually bring out the enemies of the game into the real world and they want to kill BMO. I feel really bad for BMO when they're coming out. It looks really painful. The enemies break the treehouse again. That's the second time this season. I had a lot of fun with this episode when I first saw it when it aired, and it's still fun now. Episode 17, Death in Bloom. Finn and Jake are put in charge of taking care of Princess Bubblegum's plant while she's away. When she is away, she's with the food that Finn and Jake saved in the beginning of the episode The Jiggler. I completely forgot about that. Anyway, Finn and Jake aren't really good at taking care of the plant, as we can see.
We killed it, man!
I know!
So with the help of Peppermint Butler, they go to the land of the dead to retrieve the plant's soul from death. I'm assuming that this is just one of the many death worlds that's been mentioned in the show. It's a really fun adventure through the land of the dead. Finn and Jake are avoiding flesh-eating skeletons, and we get one of the best uses of a fart joke ever.
You've gotta be really, really quiet.
Get him!
Jake!
I thought it would be funny.
Jake also loses his memory thanks to the River of Forgetfulness, so it's up to Finn to fix things with both the plant and Jake. He challenges Death to a music battle with, sleigh bells? Yeah, great choice, Finn. Right as Death is about to kill Finn, he mentions Peppermint Butler, which thankfully saves him. This is actually one of my favorite episodes from the season. It's very funny, and I just like episodes that go into darker places like the Land of the Dead. Episode 18, Susan Strong. This is the introduction of Susan Strong and the possibility of other humans in the land of Oo. Princess Bubblegum mentions humans in the beginning of the episode, and Finn feels a little weird about it. She also mentioned her Uncle Gumbald. Yeah, that's right, first mention of him was way back in Season 2. Finn and Jake are tasked with taking out a bunch of stumps, but they find that one of them is a hatch. They go underground and find there's a bunch of humans wearing animal hats.
We could rule them like gods. Angry gods.
They end up taking one of the humans called Susan up to the surface to teach her about it. We see the same dancing bug from the episode Power Animal, we learn about Rox, a low-level enemy, and we get a little song about Susan from Finn. Susan's a bit too excited about candy though, and wants to gather her tribe to come and eat the Candy Kingdom. But turns out they aren't actually humans, but mutants with gills and fins. We don't see Susan take off her hat though, and that leaves Finn wondering if she's also a human. I love Jake's response to Finn's question about it.
Jake, do you think she was human, or just another wild animal?
We're all wild animals, brother.
I think it's a really great episode that expands the lore of the show, and there's some very strong evidence of the past in here. Episode 19, Mystery Train. This is the first birthday episode for Finn, and I like that the show acknowledges that he's getting older. The episode is an old-fashioned murder mystery on a train. Someone on the train keeps killing the candy people and leaving their skeletons behind. Finn tries to figure it out, with Jake helping him along a bit, but he ends up with a very convoluted answer to who did it. When everyone on the train becomes skeletons, he finally figures out that the conductor did it, which he kept mocking for being weird and creepy throughout the episode. I love his stupid face when he says it for the final time. This is also where we see Finn pick up the root sword that he starts using regularly. It turns out that Jake was disguised as the conductor after Finn finally corners him. Then they fall off a cliff in the train and land on a gelatin person. But that part wasn't planned out, which I think is one of the funniest parts of the episode.
That part was a total accident.
Oh, so we could have...
Died horribly? Yes. Happy birthday, pal.
Episode 20, Go With Me. This is a really fun Marceline episode with Finn. Finn wants to go to couples night at the movies, but he has no one to go with. Finn asks PB, but she's busy, so Jake enlists the help of Marceline to convince her. It shows that Jake is starting to get over his fear of vampires a little bit. They try making PB jealous with Marceline, and we actually hear PB's first name for the first time with Marceline calling her Bonnabelle. Jake and Marceline have different methods of trying to woo Princess Bubblegum though, and Finn gets dressed up in the loot suit we saw in the earlier episode, Blood Under the Skin. Marceline telling Finn what to do seems a bit like she's messing around with him, but not as much as in Season 1. But still, bringing wolves into PB's room? Maybe Marceline wanted to mess with PB more than messing with Finn. After Finn realizes he can just take Marceline rather than PB, he goes to her house to try to court her instead. Marceline mistakes this for Finn wanting to date her, but he really just wants to go to the movies. When Finn explains that Jake told him that's what he's supposed to do, Jake tries hiding the fact that he said anything like that, and I think that's hilarious.
I didn't really say all that.
Marceline agrees to go, with a very funny line afterwards.
But no tongue.
What?
Episode 21, Belly of the Beast. The episode begins with Finn and Jake thinking they're in a dream and coming across this monster, quickly realizing they're not in one. We see Finn with the root sword, having some continuity with the new swords he's using. That's something I liked a lot about the show, and Finn in particular with him using different swords throughout the series. They go inside the belly of the monster because they hear someone screaming for help, but it's just a bunch of bears that look like Care Bears partying. The song that's playing is actually something I've heard used in a couple of Adventure Time video games. They try telling the bears they're inside of a monster and need to get out, but they just keep partying. One knows what's going on and tells them to talk to Party Pat, who is based on Patrick McHale and voiced by Andy Samberg. Then Finn and Jake party for a bit, leading into one of my favorite gags of this episode during the karaoke of them just holding onto the word bears for a while. I have no idea why it's so funny, it just is. Something I noticed rewatching this episode is the subtle things that Finn and Jake do with each other that makes their friendship / brotherhood seem really real. Like Finn asking Jake if his nausea is okay, and Jake comforting Finn. The episode all comes to a head when the monster gets the idea to swallow lava from Finn and Jake, and they sing a sad country song to bring the mood down so they can get out of the monster. It's such a stupid song, but I catch myself singing it sometimes.
My hot dog's dead. My pizza's dead. My cupcake is dead.
Episode 22, The Limit. This is one of my favorite episodes about Jake, and one of my favorites of the show in general. It's all about testing Jake's ability to stretch. Hot Dog Princess receives a distress signal from her hot dog knights, and Finn and Jake go to try and find them. They come across a labyrinth that won't allow them to just stretch over, so they have to go through it with Jake leaving himself behind as a trail. They come across the hot dog knights quickly, but the temptation of wishes makes them to go through the labyrinth. This is probably one of the most D&D-like episodes of the show. It just really fits it, and Adventure Time wears that inspiration on its sleeve here. As they venture deeper into the maze, Jake starts getting thinner and thinner, until they come across the final puzzle, which is a slide puzzle. I always hated those things. It's what made me get stuck in Resident Evil 4. Jake isn't doing so well by the time they get past it though, and swears off peer pressure. Though only for a little bit.
I'll never fall victim to peer pressure again.
No! Jake! Jake! Jake!
Actually, I'll do anything you guys want if you say my name 3 times.
When they get to the end, we find out just how stupid the hot dog knights are, which is just really funny, because stupid is funny.
I wish to blow up. I mean, like, get big.
Wow, you guys are really stupid.
And Jake wishes for a sandwich, which won't be the last time. But the episode ends with Finn wishing for the awesome psychic tandem war elephant and making everyone better again. It's a great episode that I think shows a lot of the creativity and imagination of the show and the characters. Episode 23, Video Makers. This episode is about a movie club that Finn and Jake have been doing with their friends, but PB mentions the warning that they haven't really read, so they just decide to stop watching the movie because of the warning. Such a hard cut like that of them just saying bye to everyone is perfect comedic timing.
Federal law provides severe and criminal penalties for the unauthorized exhibition of copyrighted motion pictures.
All right, well, goodbye.
When talking about the old movies they dig up, we also hear the first mention of the Mushroom War, so there's a bit of lore there. Finn and Jake decide to try to make their own movie. And first they just film random candy citizens doing whatever. It reminds me a lot of when I would film random things as a teenager, so this episode is a bit nostalgic for me. Eventually they decide if they're going to make a movie, it needs to have a narrative. But Finn and Jake have different ideas of what kind of genre they want to make, and that has them arguing a lot throughout the episode, which I think is one of the first times Finn and Jake actually have a major dispute. This episode also gave us the very first
Check, please.
They have BMO edit the footage, but BMO has a very different idea of what to make since Finn and Jake are fighting. He creates a sweet little music video with a short song to make them stop fighting. It's a song I often forget about when trying to list all the Adventure Time songs. It's a very sweet ending to the episode. Episode 24, Mortal Folly. This is the first major episode with the Lich, and it's a pretty great one. We see Finn, Jake, and Bubblegum meditating. Finn imagines himself as a great hero who has a robotic arm. I'm sure that doesn't mean anything. We see just how powerful the Lich is, casting spells even when he's frozen in amber. Only gems that Princess Bubblegum gives Finn and Jake will protect against it. But the snail, who is in Finn's backpack, doesn't have a gem to protect its mind, so the Lich is able to escape. We get some lore about the Lich and Billy from PB. We learn how the Lich is this entity whose only desire is to destroy all life. Then Ice King comes by with some of his antics, wanting to marry Princess Bubblegum. We can tell at this point that he's not really that big of a threat or a major villain anymore. As Finn and Jake chase after the Lich, they go across the lake from the episode Business Time. Yep, it's a lake, not an ocean, so they're keeping continuity with Finn's fear. We cut to PB emotionally eating ice cream, which looks really funny since the ice cream is alive, and she gets kidnapped by Ice King. We see a lot of cool decor from the aftermath of the Mushroom War where Finn and Jake finally catch up to the Lich. The showdown with Finn and the Lich is really cool, where the Lich talks directly to Finn, and Finn realizes he's being protected by a certain power.
The power of liking someone a lot.
I appreciate that even in intense scenes like this, Adventure Time can still make me laugh with its dialogue. When Finn attacks the Lich with his sweater that PB gave him earlier, the Lich is laughing. Maybe he's doing that because he has a plan to come back. The Ice King is also here, but he accidentally drops PB into the Lich's well of power. This was just the first part of this story though, and this was the first two-parter for the show. Mortal Folly leads into episode 25, Mortal Recoil. The Candy People recover Princess Bubblegum, and it's the first time that PB's been near death. Everyone's concerned, especially Ice King.
No, not my number one.
As the audience, we can tell that PB is acting very strange, since she's possessed by the Lich and is speaking very strangely.
The Ice Wizard is a weak fool.
PB is in bed for most of the episode, and there's definitely an Exorcist vibe going on here. Peppermint Butler actually recognizes evil, which I think is a nice touch since he is a dark one. Jake tries soothing PB with music, but that just makes her angry. And now rewatching this episode, it makes sense because harmony is the opposite of chaos. And that will come in handy much later in the show with the finale. Finn was tasked with getting some things for PB.
Bleach, lighter fluid, ammonia, gasoline, I don't know, lady stuff.
And the Lich possessing her makes a concoction that turns her into a giant monster. Finn finally learns from the Ice King that he saw the Lich possess her with his wizard eyes, establishing that messing with magic makes you see things and kinda makes you crazy. Finn plans an attack with Ice King, being the agile cat that he is.
Meow, Ice King!
And the giant PB is frozen, and accidentally killed again.
Okay, I didn't kill her this time. Everybody saw that, right?
The Candy people reconstruct her, but she appears younger, and it seems like a relationship is going to form between Finn and PB. And we get a teaser that the Lich has possessed the snail now. These 2 episodes were the first multi-part story in the show, and it was a lot of fun. I remember seeing it when it premiered, and was excited that the show was going into a more epic direction with its antagonists. But compared to the stuff that happens later, these episodes seem tame. Oddly enough, that 2-parter wasn't the finale. The week after Mortal Folly and Mortal Recoil aired, there was one more episode that was part of Season 2, and that was Episode 26, Heat Signature. Finn and Jake go over to Marceline's to watch a movie titled Heat Signature, which the third in the series was actually mentioned in the episode Videomakers. Marceline introduces them to her ghost friends as they arrive, but then they find out that Marceline's furniture isn't that comfortable, so they wonder what it would be like to be vampires and just float. Marceline has the idea to prank them, and acts like she's turning them into vampires. She's playfully bullied them before, but in this episode, her ghost friends take it a bit too far. It starts out innocent enough with Finn and Jake ruining LSP's campsite. It's funny that she's still living like that. When her can of beans get kicked over, she gets really mad.
My beans!
For some reason, people would quote that line a lot. I mean, it's funny, I guess, but not as funny as some of the other lines in the episode. After that, the ghosts start kicking Finn and Jake for one of their vampire lessons, and Marceline tries to intervene after the ghosts tell them to go jump off a ledge to start flying and intend on letting them die. Finn and Jake are unfortunately gullible enough to go to the ghost's house after that near-death experience. And Marceline comes to the rescue again. Sorta. She's just there to apologize because vampires can't be ghosts.
Oh no, vampires can't be ghosts. It's like a rock, paper, scissors thing.
But all ends well when Finn mentions Heat Signature and the ghosts want to watch it. It's an interesting episode, and not really my favorite Marceline episode of the season, but I do think that this is the point where she stops seeing Finn and Jake as a fun distraction and more as friends. So before I get into my overall thoughts about the season, let's talk about what's on the Season 2 DVD for special features. One awesome thing about this season is that they did commentary for every single episode. Unfortunately, when playing them with commentary, there's no audio from the episode at all, and some of the commentary has been cut out. Thankfully, it's not silent. Pendleton Ward actually recorded some musical interludes during those cuts, and some of them has some neat little songs. From what I can tell with context clues is that they can't mention other shows and properties for legal reasons? Like, they avoid saying Google at one point. I'm pretty sure other commentaries I've listened to for other shows and movies have mentioned other properties with no problem. I wonder if Warner Brothers and Cartoon Network have had problems with that and are paranoid about it. Other than commentaries, there's a weird video of the crew of Adventure Time being interviewed by Pendleton Ward, and he asks a couple of questions. Then shows them a video where we can only hear the audio of it. And that audio is just screaming and farting. It's very strange. That's all there is for special features. Not as much as the Season 1 DVD, but it's still nice to have commentaries on every episode, even if some of it is cut out. There is still a lot of good insight into the show and how the creators view it. I like one comment about how they see calling back to things in previous seasons as leaving bread trails for themselves in the future. So for this season, I think the main characters and the Land of Oo definitely feel a bit more fleshed out. BMO actually gets a lot more screen time. We see Princess Bubblegum in different cute outfits, which is always nice. The Lich was officially introduced as a big bad guy, and we get a lot of lore expansion with the episodes Susan Strong, her parents, and Videomakers mentioning the past in different ways. Most of the episodes still focused on just Finn and Jake, but we did get an episode in the beginning that was more focused on Marceline. As far as favorite episodes go, here are my 5 for the season. It Came from the Nightosphere, Death in Bloom, Susan Strong, The Limit, and Mortal Folly / Mortal Recoil. I know that's a two-parter, so it's technically 2 episodes, but I'm still counting it as one. There's still a lot more I love from this season, so it was hard to narrow it down. So those are my thoughts on Season 2. Let me know what your favorite episodes of the season were, and I'll see you next time with Season 3. I promise I won't take as long this time, because the script is already done.